You are listening to Dove Valley Deep Divers with Erick Trickel
and Lance Sanderson.
Ball comes out of the hands of Newton. It's on the ground, picked up by T.J. Ward at the 4-yard line. Vaughn Miller did it again.
On Overtime Media.
Happy Saturday. Welcome in. Hopefully everybody's been enjoying the first real week one of college football, week 0, whatever the heck that nonsense is. But week 1 of college football, hopefully congratulations to you CU Buff fans out there. RIP to the CSU Ram fans out there. Unfortunately, not losing, I suppose, at South Dakota State. Not the best, but I know that I'm an Iowa Hawkeye fan, rocking my Hawks, got my Hawk socks on as well. So excited to win a game. I know, Eric, you're a major, big-time Hawkeye fan as well, so you're happy to hear that the Hawks won.
Oh, yeah, and unfortunately, in large portion of our conversation tonight is going to revolve around a former Hawkeye. So, oh boy, yeah. The best Hawkeye is out of MASH. So,
yep, absolutely. Well, let's say hello to everybody who's in here right now as we're getting going. We got Andrew Morrow's in the house. Good to see you. Saying after last season, as long as they aren't on the pup list, I'm happy. Last season was rough around this time. Good call on that one. Hopefully, Broncos overwhelmingly and overall probably avoided the injury bug early, but the 17-game season depth is going to be leaned on some point. Wicked Royalty's in the house too, saying MHI Huddle in full effect. Huddle up, Broncos country. Heck yeah, Wicked Royalty, good to see you. Dylan Von Ark's in the house. Sup, Broncos country. Make sure you hit that like button on the way in. Thank you guys very much. Listen to Dylan, hit that like button. They're coming in steady. Jay Kozad's in the house. Hello, good to see you. Malachi Martin. This is like the third year where Fant has issues with his lower body. We're going to get into it, but that's a great comment there. And, a little bit of a worry, but we'll see. Good comments from Jay. John D. Herrera coming in. Broncos, please start off 3-0. Let's get to 1-0 first. Let's 1-0 would be great. Haven't been 1-0 in a while. We also got Joseph Anthony. I really need to start off fast and get to a 3-0 start while we have the Giants, Jags, and Jets. One game at a time, like I said. We got Paul's in the house, too. Awesome. Hi, Eric, and hi, Nick. John D. Herrera again saying, let's get the party started. Joseph Anthony saying, hey, everyone. Vinny J. also, good to see you, Vinny J. Percy Phillips, what's up, fellas? Topher737 saying, evening, sir. Evening to you, Topher. Alvin Jr. is in the house as well. Hey, Broncos country, ready for the week. George Fox saying, hey, guys, thanks for all your insight on the team. Thank you very much for the nice comment there. Mark Lindemode coming in saying, howdy, Nick, Eric, I'm on YouTube tonight. Go Broncos. Thanks, Mark. And also we got Fearless Frank saying, what's going on with Fant? We'll get into it. And here we go. In the shop with Willie. Well, heck, guess I'll join in today. Good to see you, Willie. And Blue Cybert? Doesn't look like Sherbert. Go Teddy. Let them hate. There we go. Flo Ocho Cinco's in the house too. Greetings from Germany. Guten Tag. Joseph T. Fisher. Hello, go Denver. Let's go Vaughn Miller and Bradley Chubb. And Eric Ernie Mays also. Hello, Nick and Eric. Go Broncos. So great to see. And Leroy, I see your comment here, but we're going to get into the matters of business here real quick. This is obviously Mile High Insider Saturday night. Luke is taking a much deserved break. So good for him. Good break. I'll actually be taking a break next week. I'll be deep in the Olympic Peninsula doing a backpacking trip that I got lucky to get permits for. So we'll flip again next week. So Luke and I can never seem to hook up, but that's okay. Thank you, Eric, very much for joining us today. Speaking of Eric, you guys can follow Eric on Twitter at Erick Trickel and myself on Twitter at Nick Kendell MHH. Also, guys, shout out to Scott, my co-host for Broncos for Breakfast. He's working the background here. You can follow him at Scout Kennedy. Also, you guys are on YouTube. Follow us at Mile High or MHI_pod, as well as at Mile High Huddle. Facebook, folks, we get the likes and the hearts coming in here. Shout out to Andrew Baker and Ernie Mays for getting the heart over on Facebook. God bless you guys. But while you're over on Facebook, join us at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod. And while you guys are over on Facebook, make sure you're getting those stars in, competing for that Von Miller jersey as well as a Mile High Huddle. Ooh, go ahead.
Actually, the race for that actually ended last night. We got to the 500,000 stars.
500,000. Well, yep. There you go. So be on the lookout for those people who earn those threw on those stars for winning that jersey. But doesn't mean the stars have to stop coming in, of course. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge to you guys. I'm speaking of stars right here. We got Tyron Gaither coming in here with the stars over on Facebook with a cute picture of his kid with looks like a bunny balloon. It's really small on my screen, so I'm going to go with that. I do have good eyes, but they don't have magnifying glass going on here. YouTube folks, also, super chats still very much welcome, appreciated, but not everybody's in a position to contribute that way. But you can do completely free. Subscribe, like, and share. Helps us a heck of a lot. So, Eric, I want to bust your balls here real quick before we even get going. You, Mr. NFL Draft Analyst, Mr. Head draft analyst for Mile High Huddle does not enjoy watching college football live. What the heck is going on, man? I just don't. It must be because you're from Alaska. I don't get it.
Well, part of the reason for that is that it's just watching it live. I feel is just too easy to get into the hype of the game and the mood of it, and then going back, catching it all live. Like I'm following on Twitter, I'm keeping track of the highlights and stuff, and then going back after the hype has ended. I guess it feels to me, anyways, that I'm going into the game with kind of a fresh mind, a clean mind, able to just watch it, not really partake. It's one reason too why I really don't find myself rooting for any college football team too.
Other than the Iowa Hawkeyes, of course. You forgot that. We got Thad Benson coming in saying howdy with the beautiful mustache. Andrew Morrow coming in with the stars here. Thank you so much, Andrew. Appreciate that so much. Everybody bringing in the stars. Miguel, Santa Stevan coming in here saying, my daughter said go Broncos, but not the Raiders. That's a bad word. You're raising her right. Also, Tommy Simmers coming in saying, thank God. So yeah, let's get into the topic of conversation here. And also, guys, don't worry. I'll make sure that here we go. Hey, Nick and Eric, how about those Hawks? See, we got the Hawks in here. We're starting to build a brand. That's great. And Thad saying, Nick, make sure Eric stays out of trouble. I'll do my best. No promises. You guys just make sure Eric doesn't cyberbully me. That's what we're looking out for here. But injuries, hate it. It's part of the game. It's a very physical game. Broncos are one of the teams that probably played their starters the most over preseason. Like we said earlier, they are a team that fortunately escaped almost all their most likely main contributors not having a serious injury. But we do have a couple here that we want to monitor for a couple of the Broncos' young stud players that should maybe garner some interest going now and also going forward. Please cyberbully him, Eric. So you're getting you're getting cheered on there. But Noah Fant and Bradley Chubb. So what can you tell us about that right now as far as the injuries for both of these guys, what they're dealing with?
Well, I mean, Bradley Chubb, he's dealing with an ankle injury. It's not the ankle that he had surgery on earlier in the offseason. I think back in May or June. I can't remember exactly when. So that's good news. It's not the injury that was bothering him last year. And then really with Noah Fant's injury, I don't know much about it except for it's a leg injury. That's basically the generalized sum of what I've heard. And it's kind of like, to me, I've got a bad feeling about it because how the coaches are handling this reminds me a lot of Baron Browning and how vague they are about it. Turned out that Baron Browning got his leg kicked, was dealing with a hairline fracture, and that's what caused him to miss so much time. Hopefully, Noah Fant's not that bad. They're saying that he'll be good to go in week 1, which is great because against the New York Giants defense, they could really use him, especially with Blake Martinez there. So, not sure exactly how severe it is or exactly what the injury is, but it's something that's definitely concerning me a little bit.
Yeah, and we got Dave Glassman coming in here. No concerns from Dave with the orange heart and blue heart coming in here with the stars. Dave is a consistent show-to-show, week-to-week, day-to-day contributor for the show and really supportive of the Mile High Huddle brand and all the live streams. So shout out to you, Dave. Thank you so much for your contribution and just consistent, unwavering support. So, yeah, I think I would kind of want to get into Noah Fant first. And I think I am concerned about this. And I always say on the show, when it comes to the Broncos, I try to be as non-biased as possible. But if there's any time that I'm kind of biased towards any Broncos, it's ones who came from the University of Iowa. I can fully admit that. I'm definitely critical of them too, because I want them to be good. I don't want them to be disappointments. I feel like, we're all representing the state of Iowa. I'm not like them though, but you want them to be good. But Noah Fant, this is the third year in a row where he's had some sort of lower body injury that has caused issues for him. Now, the season is not even started yet. Like, is he going to be able to play through it? That's fine. But I think early on at Iowa, there was some concerns about him playing through conditioning and injuries, so to speak. They kind of leaned on TJ Hawkinson when Fant was dealing with those injuries. Also, Fant was going to be a first-round pick, so it made sense to kind of protect him in that regard when those guys aren't getting paid like they are in the NFL. But do you have any concerns with that long-term? Am I reading too much into this? I mean, are we starting to have to worry about him being somebody who has that constantly injured label on him? Because it does feel like it's pretty consistent. And if he goes out there and plays through it, there are guys who do that. You're going to be playing with injuries no matter what throughout the season at some point. But it's just, it hurts me to say, but it feels like it's like a lot. It's been pretty consistent for him.
It has. And It's something that I think will always be a problem, especially with somebody his size and his athletic ability. You're going to see defenders go a little bit lower when they go to bring him down, which is going to put those legs at risk. The good news is that last year, despite the injury that he had, he was still one of the top 10 tight ends in the NFL in terms of production and overall production. He still had a really good rookie year despite dealing with an injury then as well. So despite this, he's still performing. And until, like, I'm concerned, obviously you don't want him to get hurt because every time you're hurt, if you play through it or not, you're risking a longer injury, a worse injury if you play through it. There's just a cascading effect here with it that's always a concern. So you don't want him to get hurt. You want him to be through it. But I think it's something that he's probably going to deal with for the majority of his career. And the hope is that he's able to go out there and still continue to produce that a little bit. And with these injuries, I mean, this is one thing why this offseason I was quite concerned about the tight end room. Eric Saubert fortunately stepped up a little bit.
Yes,
Albert Okwuegbunam seems to be on a path to prove my pre-draft evaluation of him wrong. So hopefully they're able to step up if Fant does miss time. We'll see. But I mean, there's Fant's injuries. I mean, it's just hard with how him missing time, but still going out there and producing. And
Yep. And speaking of producing, another solid weekly show, every show contributor, Andrew Baker, coming in here saying, "Sup fam damnly, hashtag MHH for life, hashtag Denver Broncos for life. Do they start Patrick Surtain II, and what scheme will he play?" So what his alignment will be, I think is what he's getting at here. So this is against the Giants, and I think a lot of this is going to depend on if Evan Ingram is going to play. I know that he's also dealing with an injury as well. He's kind of that H-backs, big slot receiver, tight end hybrid, where he's an amazing athlete, but he's a little bit small for the position. You know, he does his best to do the blocking. I think it was Ole Miss versus Florida State back in whatever year, 2016, 2017, where Evan Ingram just like beat the absolute heck out of DeMarcus Walker on multiple plays, which is not what you want to see from your second round interior defensive lineman getting beat by a small tight end. But what Patrick Surtain's role is going to be, you're still going to see some slot, some dime, I would imagine, as long as Bryce Callahan hasn't traded and then the formula changes. But how important it is for him to play as that big slot eraser is really going to depend on if we see Evan Ingram or not on the game, and to what extent. You know, he could be like Fant, where he's out there on a pitch count or like mainly for some kind of looks, but he's not really emphasized in the game plan because of the injuries.
I think the easiest way to describe Surtain's role is that he's basically going to be the star defensive back, something that he did a little bit early on in Alabama. And with him kind of playing the slot, the boundary, handling these tight ends, that's basically the easiest way to describe what his role on this defense is going to be.
And I just want to put reverse real quick. Just for some vernacular out there for the people listening to the show, you know, when you say somebody's a star defensive back, you know, that could mean like Champ Bailey was a star defensive back. Justin Simmons, you could argue, is a star defensive back. What is a star? Is a position in the back seven. What does that mean necessarily for this defense? It's something we've seen a lot in college over the years. And as you guys, you know, followers of football or these shows probably understand, there's kind of a trickle up effect when it comes to innovation in scheme. In football. So you've seen it in college. Now you're starting to see it more in the NFL. So what is this star position, so to speak, and how does it fit in the Broncos scheme with Vic Fangio?
Well, it's definitely going to take some adjustment from Vic Fangio because it's not typically a kind of position that he uses in his defensive front. Mm-hmm. Alabama, they're the team that uses it the most. I mean, not necessarily the most of the team that has obviously the most eyes on them that uses it quite a bit. And it's just easiest way I can sum it up is it's a versatile defensive back that does just a little bit of everything in your defensive scheme. They'll handle some deep safety stuff. They'll play down in the box. They'll play in the slot. They'll play on the boundary, just whatever's needed. And it's kind of more matchup based than just flat roll kind of thing.
Yeah, nope. Absolutely. Good comment there. We got a comment coming in here from Mo Ron as well, saying Nick in the house. This seems like a great pairing. Eric and I razz each other constantly. Man, it's constant teasing each other on Twitter and the platforms. Not really as much in our personal chat, but for the public, it's always a fun time. And Mo also says, just need Scott for the ultimate trifecta. Scott is in the house. Scott is working the background right now. So we are very grateful for Scott for doing that and enjoying it. So he says also, everybody have a drink on him. Also, everybody have a drink every time I mention the undefeated Big Ten West leading Iowa Hawkeyes. But yeah, no, let's keep it going here. Noah Fant, you mentioned it earlier, entering this season if Noah Fant missing time would have scared me greatly, because after Noah Fant, it looked like on paper Broncos were pretty void of talent. Now, a lot of people were projecting for Albert Okwuegbunam. Obviously, a big guy, ran fast in a straight line, kind of turns like a battleship in his routes. But if you can be big and fast in a straight line and they get the ball to you in the open field, good things can happen. Had to improve his blocking. Vic Fangio has complimented him multiple times on that. And I think that he improved. But he was better last year than he was in college as well. So that's great to see, especially with his size. Really no excuse to be not great as a blocker. But would you be concerned about this Broncos-Giants game specifically if Noah Fant is, let's say, 50% of the snaps he normally would get, if they're kind of a little bit patient with him? Or is this a team, and with the Broncos' depth, where you're like, okay, we can probably survive Saubert, Okwuegbunam, running with the wide receivers that they have as well, going a little bit more 11, and nursing Fant along a little bit?
The concern for me against the Giants specifically is that I want my best tight end to just try and cancel out Blake Martinez. I think Blake Martinez is probably the most underrated linebacker in the NFL right now, and he's probably top 5 overall for me. He's so good. He's really good. I mean, like Blake Martinez, I mean, he's not some outstanding cover guy, but last year he was top 3 in basically every single advanced statistical category for linebackers, right behind Bobby Wagner and Roquan Smith. Like, he was up there with them. He allows a lot of catches, but he's right there, allows very little yards after the catch. And he's not the best athlete, but he's so smart and instinctive that he just is in the right place at the right time. Mm-hmm. And so I want to combat that with the best athlete I have at tight end, and that's Noah Fant, and he's the best player there. So not having him taking out Blake Martinez could sit there and allow Blake Martinez to kind of roam a little bit with where he's focusing on. Mm-hmm. And I would just want him to focus in on one player, because getting Martinez to focus in on Fant just opens up so much for everybody else on the offense, because you can use him to clear out the middle with Blake Martinez, and with Teddy Bridgewater especially, opening up the middle of the field is so important to keep the ball moving.
And I don't know if I'd put Martinez in the top 5, but I've not watched him under the microscope. I know that he signed a massive deal going from the Packers to the Giants, and it was very chastised at the time, because
at the time it was very well deserved. He definitely grew, and I don't know if it's a scheme the Giants are running or what, but he just played exceptionally well there last year.
Do you think, and obviously defense is always a very synergistic, you're as good as the guys around you kind of situation, there might not be a better interior defensive line pairing in football this season than what the Giants have up front with Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams? Do you think that plays a big part? Like, his job is easier when you have 2 absolute units on the interior defensive line in front of you.
Well, the thing with that is he's really good against the run as well, but he's often covering up for the front line. I mean, last year, the 4 main defensive linemen for them all were in the negative for, I can't remember the stat off the top of my head now, for run defense. They were all in the negatives, which is not good. And he was one of the few defenders on the Giants defense that was in the positive. I mean, he just helped carry him a little bit. And hopefully they're able to step up. I think that Leonard Williams helped a little bit with his play and coverage, because he's did a really good job getting interior pressure. But it's hard to say how much that defense had an impact on him with what's around him, because just they were good in some ways, bad in others. Yeah.
I mean, the only other interior defensive line duo that I can think of that would rival them on paper would be probably the Washington football team with Payne and John Allen. But man, Dexter Lawrence, he was one of the highest rated recruits, and didn't probably, as much as you can say, he didn't live up to it at Clemson. He was very good, but on the line with like Christian Wilkins next to him, he just didn't live up to it. But 6'5", 350, and also as young as he was, he's really started to take that next step. Might be the second best young 1-tech, 0-tech type of defensive tackle in football behind Vita Vea, in my opinion. But it will be really interesting. I think the Broncos can get by without Noah Fant in this game and survive. And I know that obviously you'd rather have your good players out there. And shout out to Cruzan 26 with the $2 super. Hey, if you guys are an opposing team fan and you're civil in the comment section, then by all means, you're welcome. So thank you very much, Cruzan, for the super chat. That's very nice of you to do. Gary Leeds Palmer also coming to the Stars, talk about a superstar in my eye. Always very, just always very supportive and a good guy as well, and a good contributor for the show, just with the comments, comment section. So thank you very much, Gary. But I guess the point I was getting at is the reason I don't think I have to have Fant in this game is because I am not concerned with the explosiveness of the Giants offense. I don't think it's going to be a game where it's, first 1 to 30 wins kind of track meet, where obviously I'd rather have Fant, but I think it's going to be very much like a 1990s kind of maybe early 2000s game where it's going to be ugly. It's going to be one in the trenches kind of thing. I mean, both these teams, especially before Teddy Bridgewater was named the starting quarterback, but it was literally the Spider-Man pointing meme of the Giants and the Broncos with Daniel Jones, questionable offensive line, good weapons on paper, good defense versus the Broncos. I mean, very similar. Broncos probably the Giants have the Broncos when it comes to interior defensive line. I love Shelby Harris, love Draymond Jones. They're not as good as Leonard Williams or Dexter Lawrence. This is what it is. But the Broncos, I mean, their edge rushers lap the Giants. So two really good teams, very similar teams. I do think the Broncos have an edge when it comes to offensive line and turnovers, and that might be the difference in this game. But because of how the Broncos defense can keep it close, I'm not really afraid of the Giants offense. I think you can go by maybe a little bit more conservative with Fant for when you need him more, when you have to be putting up, like if we don't put up 30 points against the Chiefs, even if your defense is great, you're going to be having issues. So I personally might be a little bit more conservative. That wouldn't have been the case prior to camp, but I feel good about Saubert and Okoye-Benam, as well as how this Broncos team matches up with the Giants.
I mean, I definitely agree. If this was a team that was far more explosive on offense, I would want Fant out there a little bit more. I just think that having him handle Blake Martinez can be so beneficial for the offense that I still want it. You can get by, of course, but it's just something that could make life a little bit easier, I guess would be the best way to put it. But, man, yeah, that Giants offensive line, like, expectations are high for this Broncos defense against this Giants offense because where the Giants are weak at is right where the Broncos can easily exploit, and that's the defensive line.
Yeah, and shout out again to Tyron for the superstars here with the cute kid. That is indeed a picture of a bunny balloon in the background. So thank you very much. And good pivot here coming in right now. Thank you very much for that. Talking about that Giants offensive line. They have been really bad in camp. Maybe it's something where, like, because of the media for the Giants, maybe they're a little bit too, what's the word I'm looking for? Too critical, right? They're in the big apple's eye. So, like, it's absolutely terrible all the time. It's like the Jets, right? Like, even though they're bad, they get a lot of coverage. So maybe the Giants are being a little bit over scrutinized in that regard. But I'm really curious to see how that Giants offensive line does. And while I say, Giants offense doesn't scare me, you don't have to play keep up. If we want to play conservative with Fant, that's fine. I don't think that's actually true for Bradley Chubb because that's one where it's the strength of the team, the defense. Daniel Jones is atrocious in the pocket at protecting the football. And Andrew Thomas has been not a good tackle pick for them for, fourth overall, I think. Yep. Man, they've passed on Wills, Becton, and Wirfs. That's got to be a kick to the gonads. But that's unfortunate for them. But this is the game. Even if Bradley Chubb's, 80%, whatever. I know the Broncos have depth, but I think you need Chubb in this game, especially the combination of Bradley Chubb and Von Miller. That duo, not only do they get pressures, not only get sacks, they get strip sacks like crazy. That's how it's going to work. That's how you have to win this game.
Who is the Giants' right tackle? Name's escaping me at the moment.
Is it, do they still have Nate Soldier?
We'll get to it. Matt Pert is what ESPN says.
Yes, from Nate Solder's a backup for them, pride of Colorado, right? Buffalo tackle there, taken by the Patriots in 2011, I believe. They have Matt Pert, who I liked in the third round coming out of UConn 2 years ago. He's been okay. Man, that interior offensive line, though, has been bad. Shane Lemieux's injured. He could have a season-ending surgery, I believe, but he's going to be playing through it. They have Billy Price, former first-round pick, but he's a backup to Nick Gates at center. And Will Hernandez, who probably a lot of people in Broncos country recognize that name. A lot of people wanted the Broncos to trade up for him in that draft because of his connection with Broncos' former offensive line coach, Sean Kugler, at the time, who I think is doing good things down in Tampa Bay right now, if I remember correctly. He's either in Tampa or Arizona. I think it's Tampa, though. Kugler, Will Hernandez, though, he's kind of he really mimics Natane Moody for me, where he has those balling blocks and it's incredible, but he gets out over his skates way too much and over aggressive, and that can lead to trouble in pass protection. Speaking of trouble, though, Butch coming here with the Stars. Thank you so much, Butch. Another guy who's in the top 5, top 10 for a chance to win the Von Miller jersey there. So shout out to you, Butch. What are your thoughts about Bradley Chubb? I mean, Broncos have depth at edge. They should be okay here, but like Chubb is a difference maker when he's healthy and on the field. And Andrew Thomas has been struggling, especially with power for being a bigger guy. You think he wouldn't have issues with that. It's leverage issues when I've seen the tape. But what do you think? Can you get by without Chubb in this one? Or is Chubb one where you're like, I need that guy on the field?
So I think you can get by without Chubb because how bad Andrew Thomas has been. And I mean, taking him 4th overall, that was just a bad move. I don't know. I don't know how people could have had him rated that highly. That's my personal opinion. I didn't like him coming out whatsoever. He's a guy that I felt very strongly that's not a tackle in the NFL and should be moved inside to guard. But again, I talked about this with Fant, making your life easier, getting Bradley Chubb out there with Von Miller on the other side. Matt Pert, he's not been super strong. He's definitely growing, and you're seeing these signs of growth. Not as bad as Andrew Thomas, but Von Miller is a whole different type of animal than what he's been dealing with. So being able to go and get this pressure off from the outside and then being able to capitalize on the interior that's rather weak for the Giants. I know they traded for Ben Bredesen from the Baltimore Ravens. He should be able to help a little bit on the inside, but again, Draymond Jones, Shelby Harris, and Mike Purcell when he comes in, these are guys that can really create some problems for them. And so making your life easier, get your pressure on Daniel Jones. He's got a knack for turning the ball over, especially under pressure. Go rattle him, help out the rest of your defense, and help out your offense as much as you can.
Yeah, I mean, everyone drink, but the Iowa Hawkeyes day, their quarterback play was atrocious. Spencer Rattler went like 9 for 23 for 100 yards, but Iowa was running the ball effectively, and they got to a quick lead with turnovers and strip sacks and all that fun stuff. And that's something I think you need to do in this game. You don't want to go out there and be like, Teddy, go win me the game. Teddy, don't go lose me the game. Let's control the line of scrimmage with the run game. Don't give up on the run game too, because I'm guessing there's going to be a lot of stalemates out there, and win the turnover battle. Because Daniel Jones, it's like that ball is covered in butter, because he is probably one of the most prone guys to strip sacks out there. And with a bad offensive line too, that is a recipe for defensive touchdowns. That's a recipe for flipping the field position and controlling the game. So Brian, go ahead.
You know who are big losers from the 2019 draft when it comes to these quarterbacks? You and I, with how often we went back and forth about Drew Lock and Daniel Jones, we're definitely the big losers from that, man.
Anybody who took a quarterback that wasn't the first overall pick in Kyler Murray probably was the unfortunate one there. But what can you do? Brian Greenfield, thank you so much. Are you ready for some football? $5 super over on YouTube. Brian, college football's here, so I'm very much ready for some football. Andrew Baker's in the house too. What do you guys think of the running back room? I think Freeman earned a spot, especially till Boone is healthy, but they got compensation for him, I guess. They didn't get compensation for Freeman, right? He was waived, and then the Panthers picked him up. So
he was waived, and they got, in my opinion, a guy who's a downgrade. I mean, I guess there's potential with him, but I mean, he didn't show much as a receiver. He was a terrible blocker, doesn't offer up any special teams, which Royce Freeman didn't either. At least Royce Freeman was looking improved, looking good as a runner, and you know what you're getting with him out of receiver. It was a questionable move from me. Only thing that can make sense is that it just felt that it was just time to move on, which to me, I understand that.
Yep. But I hear what you're saying here. The thing is, for Freeman, he looked good, but your third running back has to provide some sort of special teams ability. I mean, it's a have or have not. It's a yes, no. And he did not bring anything to special teams, so he's now on another team. Is what it is. I wish Freeman nothing but the best, and I think he's got a good chance to make some look okay there in Carolina. He was not going to get carries. He behind Mike Boone, considering how much they were hyping him in camp, and also how good Javonte Williams looked and how good Gordon looked. I mean, they're just not carries for him. It's too bad they couldn't get him compensation for him. Cruzan, 26, coming back in with a $2 super, saying, I heard you guys have one of the worst run defenses. Eric, take this one. What do you think? We're Broncos with one of the worst run defenses.
I mean, last year it wasn't great, but dealing with all the injuries that they had, especially up front, definitely played a factor into that. I wouldn't say they were one of the worst. They're definitely about mid-tier, and I think that this year they'll be a lot better. I mean, teams averaged a successful run rate against them about 50% at the highest. So, and that's on a per down basis. So, wasn't great by any means, but wasn't terrible either.
I do wonder how much of that is predicated on scheme for the Broncos, because the Broncos also played one of the lowest rate of stacked boxes in football last year, as well as one of the highest rates of 2 deep safety looks. So I think Vic Fangio is very much on the forefront of, listen, if you want to run the football, by all means, God bless. That means you're taking the ball out of Justin Herbert's hands, Derek Carr's hands, Patrick Mahomes' hands. Do it. I triple dog dare you. But I think there's a lot to be said with how the Broncos' run game is somewhat trading off being less efficient stopping the run in order to prevent the big pass play.
And one thing too with this Broncos defense, I mean, I know you and we've talked about it a lot about how they're a one gapping scheme. And Ted Wynn actually had a article on The Athletic that really highlighted this, and it was very enlightening. That the best way to actually look about the gap responsibilities for the Broncos defense is it's actually 1.5. They're still able to go and attack the half, but they have to keep in mind to protect, to be able to cut back and take the other gap as well. And when you're playing guys like Deshaun Williams, who ended up turning out really well, but a guy who wasn't expected to be a starter, when you're playing guys that you basically weren't expecting to be starter, when you lose your top defensive lineman and then your second defensive lineman gets hurt and banged up and your third guy gets hurt and banged up, and you're having this rotation on your defensive line that you weren't looking into, then it's going to be problematic, because 1.5 gapping is just adding a lot more to it, that a lot more required from your defensive lineman on an intelligence aspect.
Yep. Patience, a big one there, awareness, all that stuff. And apparently the Broncos had the 25th ranked run defense last year. I'm not sure if that's rushing yards per game. I personally am a fan of the Football Outsiders, where they use weighted statistics to pull that out. So like if you're going against the best run teams, even if you are statistically giving up more rushing yards, you're going to be weighted a little bit towards the mean. So that way it doesn't look as bad, right? Like for the Broncos last year, you know, they're playing some of the worst, or some of the best quarterbacks, some of the best passing games in football. Maybe their passing yards are going to look average when it comes to actually raw stats, but when you look at who they actually played, it does matter. So yeah, we're talking right now about Von Miller. I see in the chat. Some people here, I think it was Clee, saying Miller is overpaid. He'll be lucky if he gets 10 sacks this season. Some people, Rufus, coming in and saying as soon as he signed a big contract, he kind of fell off. And I'm going to have to say Von Miller, maybe he is somewhat overpaid for the actual production he has. I mean, you paid him at the highest he was ever going to be, coming off that Super Bowl MVP, how incredibly was in that playoffs run. But we've also been somewhat zapped, cheated out of some Von Miller peak seasons here, not just because of the injury, but because of how bad the Broncos offense has been. Because when you have a rusher like Von Miller, you're going to get those great looks when you are ahead in the fourth quarter and he can pin his ears back. And Broncos have not had that at all the last 5 years because their offense has been that bad.
I mean, Von Miller, everybody looks at his sack production, and what he brings to that brings to the defense is so much more than that. He is one of the best run defenders at the edge position. And going back to 2019, that's the last tape that we had. He was still top 10 for total pressures. And the best predictor for future sacks is pressures. I think that he's going to come back. He's going to have a big year hitting double-digit sacks. And if you're I know getting after the quarterback, getting those sacks, that's the biggest thing for an edge rusher. But I mean, there's a lot of guys out there that they're good pass rushers, but if you're not a quality run defender, you're either not going to hit the field or you're just going to be limited. We saw that with Shane Ray. Granted, he really wasn't able to take that next step forward as a pass rusher, but Von Miller does so much for his defense with his run defense that cannot get forgotten about when talking about how much his contract is. Is he slightly overpaid? I don't think so, but I can understand why people think that he is. I mean, again, pass rushers, you're paid primarily for getting sacks, and that is something that he has had some problems with over the years.
Yep. No, absolutely. It's a great point. And staying healthy will be big. Also, these guys, it really matters for them if they have good secondary behind them. And the Broncos recently have had issues with that. So let's bring in Brian Greenfield here. Double dipping today. First coming in with 5, now coming in with 10. Thank you so much, Brian. He says that I'm pretty sure we'll make the Giants one-dimensional by stacking the box week 1. If not, I am going to be pissed. Well, Brian, I think a lot of it will depend on if Saquon Barkley plays, right? Like if you're going up against, I couldn't even tell you off the top of my head, the Giants backup running back. I think it is. Oh, it's Devontae Booker. I think it's actually Devontae Booker. It's a blast from the past there for the Denver Broncos. But if you're going up against Devontae Booker, you probably don't need to stack the box unless they're gashing you in the offensive line. Then you got to lean into that. But if it's Saquon Barkley, you might see them be a little bit more aggressive. Maybe that's not just scheme-wise stacking the box, but personnel-wise, with 2 linebackers on the field more so than that dime look that they've been talking about using. What do you think here? Are you going to be upset if they're not stacking the box? They do have some home run hitters. I mean, Sterling Shepard's a solid receiver. Obviously, they have Evan Ingram, and they paid all that money for Kenny Golladay. Also, Darius Slayton, who we both liked in the draft coming out, if I recall. And
I'm pretty sure they're all dealing with injury, too. And a couple of them, they're not sure if they'll be playing as well, of those receivers.
Yeah.
But, I mean, stacking the box, that's so situational, depending on what look you're getting, depending on the down and distance, depending on game situation, quarter, time left, score. Like, I'm not going to say I'm going to be frustrated if they don't, but at the same time, it's like, if they're constantly getting gashed by Saquon Barkley, then yeah, you probably should do that a little bit more. And that's where my frustration would come in. I mean, obviously, if you're constantly allowing big runs, and this is something that we've seen a few times under Vic Fangio, constantly allowing the offense to move the ball, and you're just staying light in the box, like, that's just not going to work. That's no adjustment whatsoever from your coaching staff and from what you're calling for your plays. But I mean, again, if these receivers play, I'd still be concerned about a deep enough threat. But I try to get pressure on. This is one thing talking about Bradley Chubb is if you're able to get consistent pressure from him, then you can feel a little bit more comfortable in not having to stack the box, or even stacking the box, depending on how you view your safeties for handling the deep ball, the explosive plays.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, keep it in front of you, and you got a chance to win this game. You just cannot you need to not have those stupid turnovers where the other team is all of a sudden up 7 because the ball went the other way, or those big plays that can really switch momentum. Because if you keep it close, and I think you can out execute this Giants team in that regard. So repeat coming in from Leroy Williams. I read an article about Teddy Bridgewater dink and dunk approach with his arm limitations can work with this offense. I agree. Not comparing Teddy to Peyton Manning, but he did the same thing with arm limitations too. So what's the difference? I'm not saying Teddy's not a smart quarterback at all, because he is a very smart quarterback, but you're talking about arguably the best football brain to ever play the game in Peyton Manning. I mean, what Peyton could do pre-snap, as well as the leadership that he had. And again, it's not that Teddy didn't have leadership, but like the expectations and respect that had Peyton Manning. I mean, if Peyton Manning told you to do something, by God, if you didn't do it and click your heels, you're out of here in my book. That's the one that I think is a big thing here. But this offense can work with Peyton Manning. He's not Peyton Manning. But as far as the horizontal offense, getting the ball to the right guy in space and time, doing great run checks. Also, that's really important. Getting into the right run look based on the front. I mean, that's going to be it's hidden yards for the quarterback in that regard. But that's a big thing too for this quarterback who's going to be the quarterback for this team. And just keeping it simple, protecting the ball, keeping it simple, and playing complementary football. Is it sustainable for 10 years to win football games that way? Probably not. With this roster right now in 2021, that can keep you in almost every game, and that can take the Broncos pretty far this season.
Yeah, I mean, Teddy, he's a smart quarterback. He's very intelligent. He knows how to make the calls pre-snap. We saw that a lot this preseason, him calling out the blocking alignments, which took some pressure off of Lloyd Cushenberry. But Peyton Manning is a whole nother level when it comes to football intelligence. And the way he prepared, you just can't replicate that. This offense, it can work. And it can work with Teddy Bridgewater at the helm. And Teddy, he's not as checked down Teddy as a lot of people call him out to be. On third downs last year, he actually had a lower rate of throwing underneath the sticks on third down than Drew Lock did. So he's calculated when he pushes the ball. And when he goes to his check down, it's after he's gone through his reads, which is what you want to see. So not Peyton Manning by any means, but it is an offense that you can work with and you can go out there and win games. The issue will be is if you get behind, can he go out there and win you the game?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's kind of like talking about the Hawkeyes. Everything went well. Defense killed them. Pressure constantly beating them up. Great run game, great offensive line. At some point in the season, you're going to come up against an opponent where something's not going to be working. It's going to be close. and it's going to fall on the shoulders of your quarterback. And is your quarterback good enough to pick up that team and carry them over the finish line? And that's, I guess we're going to find out. Peter Middleton coming in here. Peter over in Cambodia. God bless you, Peter. Hope you're doing well. Says, if Beck goes down, who will be our fullback? First off, no fullback there. That's why are you asking about the fullback? No, might as well ask about the long snapper. No, it probably would be Saubert or Alberto Huebanam, and I guess it depends on what's more important for their looks. You might see some looks also with somebody like Javonte Williams or Mike Boone there, but typically you see a tight end rolled back into that position, especially with Beck. I mean, he's H-back tight end, fullback. So I would lean Okuebanam / Saubert, and I guess it's what's more important to them in that look. Getting the blocker on the edge and Saubert and the athlete in the backfield, or flipping it with Saubert being the better blocker in the backfield.
I mean, Denver kept Andrew Beck. I'm not sure why. Last year he played 53 snaps as a fullback over the whole season. And then I know they had Jeremy Cox back there, and Jeremy Cox, he played like an additional 17.
Yeah.
70-ish snaps. You don't need to keep somebody full-time just for that.
No.
So if he goes down, knock on wood, I don't want him to get hurt. Hopefully the Broncos decide, we don't need a fullback, and they just go away from that. And if they want to use two backs, Javonte Williams, Melvin Gordon. There we go.
Boom. We got Michael Ronquillo coming in here saying, good evening, Nick and Eric. Good evening, Greg Smith. You mean aloha, Greg Smith. Excuse me. And Broncos country. Go Broncos for life. Amen. Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you for supporting us both in the more AM and the PM. Very helpful for us there. We also got Brian Greenfield coming back in with $5 over on YouTube saying, okay, I understand we aren't attacking the box every down or stacking the box every down, but we better make so Daniel Jones has to beat us, which I don't see happening. I'm going to be a little bit tongue in cheek here, a little cheeky, I guess the way to go here, but you don't have to beat Daniel Jones or make Daniel Jones beat you. You have to make Daniel Jones beat himself. And what is that? Making him stick in the pocket. The alarm bells are going off, not trusting his line. I think you're going to get pressure on him organically, especially I see the Giants fan in here saying Daniel Jones is good with the deep pass. You know what you need to do to have a deep pass? You need to have the pass protection in front of you to let those deep routes develop. And if you're beating the offensive line up front, Daniel Jones is either going to make a mistake because he's feeling the pressure, or he's going to hold on to the ball too long. And if he's not the leader in the league in strip sacks from the quarterback position, he's got to be one of the top over the last 2 seasons. So with Von Miller and Bradley Chubb, you can get after the quarterback. Also, God, I am so ready for a Draymond Jones breakout game. Maybe week 1 will be the game. I'm just looking for one of 3 sacks, maybe a pick 6, something like that. Or it's oh my God, Draymond Jones, hello. And with how those Broncos coaches and everybody's been talking about him all off season, he was good in preseason. Don't get me wrong, but I'm looking for that game where it's dude's here. Let's do it. And this could be the game because not impressed all around with the Giants offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is Daniel Jones is, you don't make him beat you, you make him beat himself. You make him beat his own team. Getting pressure on it. He was one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL last year when he was under pressure. Was one of the most sacked quarterbacks, and they didn't do a whole lot to really improve that offensive line. They're betting on improvement from Andrew Thomas, which granted it's preseason, but you didn't see the improvements that you want to see from Andrew Thomas. And in fact, when I broke down Andrew Thomas to get ready for this game, it looked like he actually took a step back, a lot more lunging, not keeping his hands and his feet in sync, a leaning. I mean, I don't know how many times I saw him kicking out to this thing or kicking outside in his kick slide and him getting heavy on his outside foot and just so easy to push over and get that inside leverage on him. It's just not seeing this improvement. So just constantly rattle him. Maybe it doesn't pay out right away, but eventually he's going to make a mistake. Something's going to happen, and it's going to be a big play for the defense. And if Denver's losing at that point, it should be enough to help them get right back into this game.
Keep it close, and who can not make the mistake, right? I mean, that's not, again, I keep saying it's not sustainable long-term. Eventually, you're going to have to outscore guys, right? Because there's so many explosive offenses, especially in the AFC West with the quarterbacks they have, and how volatile how good defenses are year to year. But with this team on paper this year, that should be enough. It really should be. Honestly, the biggest thing is I've made my bed with Teddy / Locke. They're going to be as good as they are. I'm not expecting top 10 from either of them. I'm not expecting top 14 from either of them. Offensive line, though, if that offensive line can be great, they can dictate a little bit more on the offensive side of the ball. That would be incredible. A quarterback, I mean, remember rookie year Dak Prescott, where they went all the way to, they should have probably beaten the Packers in Green Bay. I think that was rookie year Dak Prescott. Leaned on that offensive line. Defense wasn't that good, but they could dictate. Same with the Browns last year. I mean, I know you were a bigger Baker Mayfield guy, right?
Yeah,
if I recall. I think Baker's just been solid in the NFL. Yeah, not great, but last year that offensive line, they were able to dictate and make it really easy for Baker Mayfield, and that was as close as the Chiefs were to being knocked out because that offensive line continually pressed the issue and made it so the run game was efficient and they could create explosive plays with the run game, et cetera, et cetera. It is a formula that can win, maybe not every single year, but if you have that offensive line that season, it can work. Maine to Bay coming in over on YouTube with the $2 super. Thank you so much, Maine. He says, just got in. Is Chubb and Fant hurt? Oh, God, please no. It is not serious. It sounds like it's not serious. I am a little bit concerned about the vagueness of the Fant injury, but here we are, and it's an ankle injury for Chubb. It's not the ankle that he had surgery on. Do you think that's better or worse that it's not the ankle he has had surgery on?
As somebody who's completely messed up my ankles, I think it's better that it's not. With all the injuries that I've done to my own ankles, like it seemed like after the first one, it seemed to just get weaker and weaker. But at the same time, that's also the fact that now the other ankle is something to be concerned about too, because it's now weaker. So I don't know. I guess it's a good thing and a bad thing is what I can think of.
It's not what you want. Luckily for the Broncos, they do have some depth at edge. And hopefully, I really hope that this season they lean a little bit more with the depth with Jonathan Cooper, even though he's maybe he's never a amazing starting caliber edge in the league, but he looks like he's going to be one of like the better backup types or a solid starter. And Malik Reed was very solid last year, maybe not a star, even though he led the team in sacks, but it could be very good. So with Chubb, he's a different type of pass rusher than both those guys. And I want him out there because I think he really can take it to Andrew Thomas. But hopefully game flow wise, you're out there executing. You don't need to lean on him 100%, and you're going to rotate those guys anyway. Ideally, you're going to see them rotate the edge rushers this season a lot anyway. I mean, when the Broncos defense was the best, there was a team that rotated those edges a lot, and those guys were fresh. They were healthy, less chance to get dings because just less snaps. And with Cooper and Reed, ideally, you should be able to rotate those guys.
Yeah, definitely. And that's when the Broncos won the Super Bowl. You touched on it. I mean, the big key for that was that they're able to not just rotate their edge rushers, but their defensive line to get that interior pressure and didn't have this huge drop off in performance out there. I mean, obviously there was some going from DeMarcus Ware and Von Miller to Shaq Barrett, who has turned into be a great player, and then Shane Ray, who's now out of the NFL. Obviously there's some drop off, but it wasn't a major one to where it just completely crippled your defense. And obviously you're not going and pulling Von Miller and Bradley Chubb and putting in Cooper and Reed. So that helps ease that. And so having this depth, I mean, that was something that last year we just didn't have. When Malik Reed was out there, he struggled against the run, and I know he had 8 sacks, but a lot of his sacks were not exactly great individual plays on his part. And when Bradley Chubb was off the field, and in came he's with the Bears now, Chiquilo and
Anthony.
The other one that they had. Whenever they came in, like there was this huge drop off in performance from that side of the ball, and you can't go out there and you can't be a consistent defense if you have that huge drop off.
Yep. Nope, absolutely. It's going to be fun to see how this team looks. I'm really hoping they don't look flat. I know that a lot of Broncos country was probably panicking there for a second when the Rams' third string offense was moving the ball against the Broncos' first string, but it's early. They're probably also, that's one big thing too. Vic Fangio is probably calling simple, stupid scheme. We don't have the all 22, unfortunately, but schematic wise, probably not anything super complicated, which is what he will unveil again week 1 against the New York Giants and Daniel Jones. So will be really interesting. Eric, I don't know if we're gonna have another chance to talk about this Broncos Giants game before we get into it's 1 week away. We're 8 days away. What are your keys to the game now that we're really starting to dip our toes into that matchup?
I mean, we've both talked on it, is rattle Daniel Jones. That's the biggest one. Anytime you can affect the quarterback, and the team, every team lives or dies by the play of the quarterback, do whatever you can to rattle him. Get to Daniel Jones, force him to make mistakes when he gets under pressure, and better yet, rattle him enough to where he makes mistakes even when pressure isn't getting home. Be creative, because this offensive line for the Giants, they're not the most experienced, and they are, obviously we've talked about it, they're not the best unit. So I would expect to see a heavy dose of stunts coming out of Vic Fangio, which is his favorite. He's going to do everything he can to get as much pressure as he can with as few pass rushers, and to sit there and complicate the reads, to drop more people in coverage, try and disguises it. I mean, Daniel Jones is smart, but I mean, not that smart, not to a thing where he can sit there and read through these and able to get pressure. Compared with that, mistakes are going to happen. And I mean, we can see multiple turnovers for the Broncos defense.
Yeah, and you're talking about the Broncos defense versus the Giants, so you're leaning on the strength. I think the most interesting thing will be the Broncos offense versus the Giants defense. They have a very good secondary, not as good as the Broncos, but they have one of the better secondaries on paper. And like I said, outside of Washington football team, I don't know if there's a better duo for the interior defensive line, which could be an issue for the Broncos as a team that's really wanting to lean on that run game. And everyone drink. I think I said this on one of the morning shows with Scott, but I've seen this 100 times with the Iowa Hawkeyes. It's when the run game is not working, and they continue to try to do it, and it's just not working, and eventually they just completely lose their identity. They panic. Oh my gosh, we're 3 drives in, we've only gotten 1 first down, and the run game's only averaging like 2.5 yards a carry. Okay, that's fine. I mean, that's not great, but that's going to happen maybe with how good this Giants defensive line is. But with this defense that you have here, I don't think you don't want to lose who you are in this game. If the run game is not working at first, that's okay. The run game is supposed to be a cumulative effect over a game. It's like a boxer, right? Like if you're going in there trying to throw haymakers right away, sometimes that's fine, but you're getting those body blows, right? You're slowing them down. You're weakening their core, and getting at them. And eventually, after enough punches, you leave them vulnerable for that big hit. So as long as the defense can keep it close, even if your run game is not working as well as you want to early, don't abandon it. Don't lose who you are. Keep going at it. Stay focused as long as it's staying close, and eventually you will wear this team down. Because I like this Giants defense. I think they're pretty good. Obviously, we talked about it, but I don't know if they have they're not the deepest either, right? Like you have 2 rookies in the depth, or the backups for this defensive line, with Quincy Roche and Raymond Johnson as some backups. I also have Danny Shelton, who's been a pretty big bust, but I don't love their depth. I think if you can continue to go at them, keep punching body blows. I mean, you got 2 good running backs. You should have a good enough offensive line. Protect the ball. And even if it's 4 yards at a time, 3 yards at a time, keep it close. Keep punching. Eventually, you're going to wear them down. I really do think that. It's like a water over stone. You will break them.
And the best way to attack this Giants defense is attack the edges. Their edge position, it's not the strongest. They're definitely stronger in the interior. And their other linebackers, besides Blake Martinez, aren't always the quickest to get outside. Mm-hmm. And with them having Adoree Jackson, run right at him. I mean, he is not good when it comes to being a corner defending the run. Run at him and just put the pressure on that side. Mix it up a little bit, of course, but definitely go and attack the edges of this Giants defense.
Yeah, and circling back before we start to wrap it up in here, bringing it back to Noah Fant. Let's say Noah Fant's not 100%. You're not really in love with game planning for Alberto Cuebanam, Eric Saubert. Eric Saubert's been a journeyman to date. He's looked good in camp, no doubt about that, but it's camp. There's tears every time. Oh, we heard them in camp, preseason, regular season, postseason. Every single time it gets a little harder and harder. But if you don't want to lean on Saubert or Alberto Cuebanam, and you want to isolate those Giants linebackers, which Blake Martinez is fine, but he does allow catches. Maybe this is a chance where you're looking for Teddy Bridgewater, Mr. Yak, giving those guys yak, serving up on a platter. Maybe the running backs. We haven't talked so much about the running backs in the pass game. Didn't see it so much in preseason as you'd like to see, but it's something that Teddy emphasized and worked on over the last 2 seasons. I mean, going from Alvin Kamara to Christian McCaffrey leading up to those seasons prior to injury. So that's something he's going to focus on. And while I haven't loved the Javonte Williams pass catching, once he gets the ball in space, and his pass blocking is incredible. And then Melvin Gordon, also actually a pretty darn good receiver. So even if you're losing Noah Fant, I am curious to see how the Broncos, again, it leans into conservative game plans, but using these running backs in the pass game as well as an extension of the running game.
I think if you take Noah Fant out of the equation, your best thing, besides getting the running backs involved in the passing game, which I fully expect, Pat Shurmur, he really likes to get those running backs involved. I think that your best bet would be utilize KJ Hamler on a little bit of these shorter throws, not so much the deep. And I mean, people see his speed and automatically think deep, but one of the things he did best at Penn State was getting these underneath throws and just making something magical happen afterwards. And without Noah Fant, I think that's the best way to go to lean on is KJ Hamler on these short throws.
Oh man, I would absolutely die if they started to use KJ Hamler. Maybe some options with some jet sweeps with KJ Hamler coming around here to freeze those edge rushers. I mean, you want to talk about softening an edge and those guys being the weaker parts. If you have KJ Hamler with a head on fire on a jet sweep or a pre-snap motion, you act like you're going to put it in his gut and then give it to Javonte Williams the other side. Good luck. Unless Dexter Lawrence is absolutely blowing up Lloyd Cushenberry, 3 or 4 yards into the backfield, which is possible because Cushenberry is struggling and Dexter Lawrence is 6'5", 35-inch arms and 350 pounds that I recall, just an absolute unit. But those are ways, and you can really also not only soften those edges, but also freeze those linebackers as well, so they're not flowing as well to the football. And then it opens up play action, RPO. Ah, man, I'm in a college football mindset right now. You don't see that innovation as much in the NFL. Maybe you should, though. But we got another superstars coming in here from Michael Ronquillo saying, great show tonight, Nick and Eric, this Saturday night. Thank you very much, Michael. He also says, go Broncos for life. Go Broncos for multiple life sentences. How about that? We're getting slapped on here. We're not working off for good behavior. Not in this show. But go ahead.
I have one question for you. Talking about how to attack, what is your one matchup concern coming into this game? One defender or offensive player against the other one?
Specifically for the Broncos defense or just in general?
Either way, Broncos offense versus the defense, or
it's Lloyd Cushenberry. I think that Lloyd Cushenberry is the linchpin of the offense. I really like I said, I really liked it, Leonard Williams and Dexter Lawrence. I think they can do a lot of twists and underfronts with them as well. And Cushenberry struggled with that last year. He's not very good at the point of attacking. If this team is trying to be physical up front and get that kind of identity, your center cannot be your worst player on the offensive line. You cannot be weak there. So it's kind of an unfortunate situation, but that scares me a bit. I just worried that Cushenberry is going to get bully balled in this game, and that could just totally kill your game plan.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I was with you, how you were talking about Dexter Lawrence. I kind of figured that's the way you were wanting to go, but I wanted to hear somebody else kind of not necessarily rag on Lloyd Cushenberry, but just mention that he's got to step up because this preseason wasn't good from him, and last year wasn't good. And I think that the offense, they made some changes towards the end of last season. I think that was mutually beneficial to Drew Lock as well as Lloyd Cushenberry. Took out the responsibility of him trying to call the blocking alignments. So hopefully Teddy Bridgewater is able to help him be comfortable as a result by handling that aspect of it. But it's still enough of a concern that if Denver loses, I wouldn't be shocked if a large reason of this is because Lloyd Cushenberry just couldn't hold his own.
Yep, very possible. Are there any matchups that you are just most looking forward to, just for fun? Something that, like this is going to be a good one, two good players, or one that's very favoring the Broncos. You could say maybe lining up Von Miller versus Matt Pert is going to be, can he even bend over to touch Von Miller with how low Von Miller can get around the edge? I mean, I don't know. Matt Pert's long, but like he's tall and kind of stiff as well.
I really want to see, it's not an individual thing. I want to see these Broncos receivers attack the secondary of the Giants, and as primarily James Bradbury. I think that he's a good guy, a good corner, but I think that he's one that you can easily get caught into bad matchups and exploit. And with the Broncos depth at receiver, I want to see what they're able to do to try to get these favorable matchups against him on the offense.
Yeah, and we got a comment coming in from Peter Middleton here. So I think he's talking about Cushenberry getting beat up, saying, and also, I mean, Glasgow and Reisner also have some issues when it comes to holding their ground. I think they're both obviously they're offensive linemen, and compared to me, they could kick the heck out of my butt. But I would say they're both a little bit more finesse blockers than they are, those kind of mauler types where they are super just grown man strength tossing guys aside. So it's not just Cushenberry, it's those two guys as well with this interior defensive line. But when you're talking about running back to support, typically, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but typically that running back is much more helpful for helping somebody on the edge. Like if your interior offensive line is your running back can help step up and whatnot and do that. But a lot of times if that running back's out there and just you're holding him back to be an extra blocker, it's more about slowing down an edge rusher. If you're getting beat up in the middle, there's not much you can do. Unless you want to, I guess you can compact the line and do double teams with that and then have one-on-ones with the running back helping there. But what do you think on that? Is the running back going to help that much if your interior is getting blown up?
I mean, typically it's either when you're keeping a running back in there, it's either to help out one of your edge defenders or keep an eye for a blitz coming either from the interior or on the outside. not so much going in and helping handle the nose tackle that's just beat up on your center. It's definitely possible. I mean, if the tackles are able to hold their own, no blitz, then yeah, he can come up and help that. But that's typically not the main idea or plan when you keep a running back into block.
Yeah, so if one of those interior offensive linemen is getting beat up, it's odds are you're going to have to see double teams from the interior and kind of some shuffling of the assignments in the pass protection. But you feel good about that, even though isolating. Heck, I think not constantly, but if you at some points, left Williams out there with an edge rusher when he was meeting him, or some trickery with the line moving, I think you could handle it for a little bit. Obviously not for a lot, but he's looked pretty good in that department. Last one I want to say, but that I'm really excited about, Jerry Judy. Right, like he's been killing it all camp. He's probably been the Broncos' most electric player, and he needs to have a great year if this team is going to be great. And this is a good defense, but I really hope that the Giants match up James Bradberry on him, because I want to see Bradberry try to get hands on Judy. I think it'll most likely be Adoree Jackson. That's on paper. That's what it would look like. Adoree is a very explosive athlete, but sometimes I think he plays a little bit tall. Not the best change of direction, more explosive forward. So I'm really curious to see how Judy looks against you guys. You mentioned the wide receivers, but I'm looking Judy specifically and Judy versus Adoree Jackson.
So when I started talking about the receivers, it was primarily because I want to see Jerry Judy against James Bradberry. Yeah. I think that's the most exploitable matchup for the Broncos offense. But ideally for the Giants is getting Jackson on him, because Jackson's just so fast and so quick. But Jackson, he's kind of a I don't want to say a lumber
Jackson. They have two Jackson cornerbacks.
They do.
Adoree. They traded
Adoree.
for the Hawkeyes. They traded for Josh Jackson.
Yeah. Getting him against Adoree, I think that he is very quick, very athletic, but he sometimes can get caught up trying to guess routes. And so I'm kind of curious to see what Jerry Judy can do, trying to throw him off and make him guessing, seeing him guessing correctly.
Yeah, and we got Jay coming in here. First, let's get to Travis here real quick with the Stars. Travis is always a super big man, one of the nicest guys around. I really shout out to you, Travis. You're a good guy. Travis says, just showing some love. Thank you, Nick and Eric. Hope you guys are having a great Labor Day weekend. Bring on the season. Let's go Broncos. Thank you, Travis. You have a great Labor Day weekend too. That's so very nice of you. We got Jay coming in saying, you guys got me really worried about the center position. I would be worried about it anyways, regardless, but I want to emphasize it's because of the matchup, and it's how much I am impressed with Leonard Williams, who was the number 3 overall pick in 2015 draft. It was the Amari Cooper draft. So he was by the Jets and traded over to the Giants, and then also Dexter Lawrence, really, really talented. So that's an area where you're gonna have to look out for. And even if Cushenberry struggles, I think you're more likely to see Glasgow shifted over to center than Miners, because Miners needs to be put on ice for a little bit, right? He's in the fermentation chamber, if you will, for your beer drinkers out there.
If Cushenberry struggles, Glasgow to center, and then Moody in at right guard. That's what you're looking at. I doubt we see Miners outside of injuries. Doubt we see Miners play this year.
I will say, maybe you see Miners if the season is lost and you're looking to get reps out there, like the last 4 weeks of the season. Like, the Broncos aren't really playing for that much. Let's get the young guys out there. On top of injuries is obviously one as well. But it's like when you have that quarterback who is probably not ready to play, but you want to get him out there to get him some live reps to improve upon, get the confidence up, get some more tape out there. So that's where I think your path to see Miners this year. So hopefully we don't see him in that regard. But guys, that's going to have to do it for us. We're at 1 hour and 2 minutes, and we got things to do, and I know you guys do too. So first, before we go any further, I want to give a shout out to everybody who contributed today. We got Tyron Gaither, Andrew Morrow, Dave Glassman, Andrew Baker 2 times, Gary Leeds Palmer, Cruzan 26, go Broncos, Cruzan, we'll get you in the end. Butch, Brian Greenfield 3 times, Peter Middleton, Michael Ronquillo 3 times as well, Maine DeBoy, Dennis Woods, as well as Travis Weber. And if we missed you guys, I am sorry, but that's there's a bunch of you out there. You all are so supportive and helpful. And Eric, what are you looking forward to? I see that this Georgia Clemson game is pretty close right now. DJ Ukulele, some people thought would be the number 1 overall pick in 2023. Looks like he is the second best quarterback today because Bryce Young was so good for Alabama. I just check that game.
I'm actually going to go and just spend some time with the wife tonight, but I actually just caught a highlight of that. Caught a couple of them, and DJU, one of them, he just held the ball forever, took a sack, and then now just threw a pick 6. So not looking so good early on for the Clemson quarterback.
Yep. Only score so far is a DJ Ungalele pick 6, but man, he's a toolsy guy. We'll see how he plays. It's a 2023, so he's got a lot of time to get there. But thank you everybody for joining us today. Obviously, you guys can follow Eric and myself on Twitter. Eric at Erick Trickel. That's ERICKTRICKEL. Excuse me. For you listeners out there, I know not everybody's joining us in the live stream format, not the visual side. For the audio folks, it's ERICK. And it's Nick Kendell, MHH as well. Also, guys, make sure you follow Scott Kennedy over at Twitter as well, at Scout Kennedy. You guys can also follow us at MHI_football pod and at Mile High Huddle. Facebook, folks, we did pretty well in the likes department on Facebook, 38. Would have loved to get it up to 40. So if you're at Facebook right now, make sure you drop a like or a heart. That would be really nice. But if you're joining us on Facebook today, also make sure you go on over to facebook.com/Mile High Huddle, as well as facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod. If you're joining us on YouTube today, first off, shout out to everybody who gave the super stickers, super chats over on YouTube. But also, you guys, make sure you subscribe, like, and share over on YouTube. Also, when you're over there, follow Scott's channel over on YouTube, youtube.com/C/Scott Kennedy. Eric, any shout outs or anything you want to get to before we get on out of here?
No, I mean, it's been good. Thank you for having me on. It's always a treat when I get to sit down and just chat football with you. And just was nice being on. And thanks everyone for joining in. And also thanks to everyone who joined in last night too. Just quick shout out for the Valley Deep Divers. You guys helped actually set a record for all podcasts actually last night. So thank you all for joining in last night and helping break that record.
Man, that's awesome to hear. Congrats to you guys. Congrats to all the shows. Thank you guys so much. It's going to be a fun season. The second to last Saturday until we have Broncos football. The last Saturday until we have real NFL football, right? Thursday night football going to kick us off here. So it's here and it's beautiful. Love you guys. Stay safe. And I'll see you guys Tuesday morning. Eric will see you guys next Friday. But until then, go Broncos.
You've been listening to the Huddle Up Podcast. Join Broncos Country's deep divers at milehighhuddle.com to keep the conversation going.